Hi, good evening. I'm Sandeep, and you're watching The Weekender at 5. In today's headlines, 14 new cases of COVID 19 in community and 9 in MIQ were reported today. In a statement released by the Ministry of Health, it was said that a total of 4,922 active contacts are being managed. There are 34 cases in hospital, including 2 in ICU. While the daily case numbers fluctuate, the ministry said it was likely that there will be a rise again in coming days. The report also said that 47,796 booster doses were given, a record to date in the past 24 hours. In other headlines for today, experts are calling to delay the school opening to ramp up the COVID 19 vaccination rollout for children. University of Otago epidemiologist Amanda Quastling has said Omicron had triggered an avalanche of infections in children overseas that were now overwhelming schools. Schools and hospitals are struggling to manage the high rates of infections, and there are rising concerns about post acute infection in children, including long COVID and an increase in autoimmune problem like diabetes, Dr. Kwalsvik said. She also said that on top of vaccinations, more work was also needed to optimize classroom ventilation, secure more supplies of high grade masks, and ease access to rapid antigen tests. It is pertinent to recall that more than 500,000 doses of children's Pfizer vaccine have arrived in the country over the weekend, ahead of the rollout of 5 to 11-year-olds from Monday, 17 January. However, some other university academics have come out in support of timely opening of schools, citing the delay in access to face learning opportunity would be more detrimental to the growth and overall well-being of the young children. COVID-19 Duty Minister Grant Robertson has said schools would reopen as planned at this stage, although the government will constantly review its COVID-19 response in the light of Omicron. In another interesting news, NEVA, the Premium Environmental Agency of New Zealand, has said and declared that year 2021 was the warmest ever year on record. The nationwide average temperature was 13.6 degree, which is over and above 0.9563 above the annual average set before 1981 and 2010. In the last, but one of the most important news for our migrant communities, Education New Zealand highlighted international students' contribution to New Zealand in a submission made to Productivity Commission exploring and investigating the role of contribution of immigration in New Zealand. In the submission, Export New Zealand, in the submission, Education New Zealand says that international students should not be characterized as coming to New Zealand to seek employment, invest, or run a business. Rather, international students are motivated by different drivers in deciding whether to come to New Zealand and are different to other temporary migrants included in the scope of the inquiry. To read more on this submission by Education New Zealand, do follow us on Facebook and read our next upcoming issue next Friday. So, in the interview section today, we would like to continue and speak about this important issue related to immigration, which is one of the most important issue for our broader migrant communities. So, we would like to invite one of noted and emerging immigration advisor within our community, Himang Bharadwaj. Himang, he was a ex-warrant officer within Immigration New Zealand, so he brings probably around a decade of experience within Immigration New Zealand, and has been in a position to share very good insight about the thinking of Immigration New Zealand. So, welcome to our digital studio, Himang.
Hi, Sandeep. Thank you for having me.
Well, Himang, I can see that you are still in your summary vibes. Probably, I think you have read our news of NEVA saying that 2021 was the warmest year.
Oh, it feels like 2022 might be the warmest year after we're done with 2022. But yeah,
Surely.
it's been quite hot lately.
Surely, surely. Well, you're quite right in that. And I think if we follow the trends, then probably 2021 was again a not so good year in terms of immigration. Probably there were a lot of chaos in terms of
Mm,
visa processing and what government was wanting to do until they came to declare about one-off residency visas, which was one of the biggest news in 2021. And
for
probably
sure.
I would like to open this discussion with you about your experience from the first December deadline. How was it? And then what preparedness we are doing for towards 1st of March. सबसे पहले आप हमें ये बताइए कि 1 दिसंबर में जो हमारी वन ऑफ रेसिडेंसी वीजा के लिए जो एप्लीकेशंस आई थी, बहुत सारी स्टोरीज आई थी कि chaos है और डिले है, और जो वेबसाइट का जो क्रैश था,
Mhm.
वो अब स्टेबलाइज हो गया है क्या?
I guess that's probably a question for the technical team of Immigration New Zealand to answer. But the issues that people were facing or that we faced with the one-off resident visa in December, um, आज की डेट में जब हम temporary visa application submit कर रहे हैं or anything, we're not facing that issue anymore. The immigration website seems to be working, लेकिन but you know every time a popular category of visas open up, that opens up at a particular time, even in the history like silver fund work visas होते थे जैसे पहले, yeah, working holiday visa, which is not for our Indian community but for other communities as well. The website has historically always crashed. So in March as well, I'm not expecting anything different. But so far from December, most of the people who were eligible, I believe, have been able to submit their applications in December round. And so far, Immigration New Zealand, as of 4th of Jan, has approved 1,783 applications so far, which
Okay.
is
Which is
not.
not bad, isn't it? अगर
Yeah.
1783 एप्लीकेशंस अप्रूव हो गई हैं, मतलब उन्हें रेसिडेंसी मिल गई है, which is certainly a good news for, but it is again a very very small numbers.
Yes.
And when probably there were many news they were coming out at that time, that probably it could even take up to years for
Hmm.
Immigration New Zealand to process those applications. But do you think with this news of 1783 applications being processed, can we expect similar level of outcome for the remaining application from December round?
I think Shayad, I mean, if I have to make an educated guess, I think Jan and Feb will have similar numbers. The numbers will go up. December may, like every other, department or other people, a lot of immigration officers take their vacations and annual holidays in December. So I don't think Immigration New Zealand was working at its maximum capacity in terms of processing. तो उस वजह से I don't think कि जो हमारे को December के numbers हैं, we should take that as a ballpark for what immigration can do in the coming months. Secondly, I believe most of the processing for one-off resident visa right now is in Manukau office only,
Mhm.
whereas in March you would have Hamilton and Henderson offices processing the applications as well. So I do believe कि as we go by, the number of applications that are being approved per month are going to be a lot higher than 1783. Otherwise, though, 110,000 applications 12 months में process ही नहीं हो सकती if we continue with the same pace.
Fair
One of
enough,
my
definitely.
clients did a maths and came back to me, said अगर देखो इस पेज पे जाएंगे तो 5 साल लग जाएंगे इमिग्रेशन को प्रोसेस करने में एप्लीकेशन. हम लाइक नहीं नहीं भाई, ऐसा इतना भी टाइम नहीं लगेगा इमिग्रेशन को.
बिल्कुल, बिल्कुल,
It's
बिल्कुल.
just
Well,
a starting point in
and
December.
yes, and that actually tells us that, talking about your client, that the clients, they can have any kind of unrealistic or realistic concerns, and probably that takes us to the next level. That I don't know about you, but Indian Weekender, like here, we have been receiving a lot of calls from a lot of anxious people actually who
Mhm.
have to put in their application on 1st of December, because their understanding is that probably for 1st of December category, it was for a more specialized skill, temporary migrants, and now it is about more generic thing. So there is a perception out there that probably more rigorous documentation is required now in this 1st December category, 1st December round. So can you just throw a little bit more light on that, and tell
Sure.
us?
See, the criteria December में या March में criteria is exactly the same. You have to meet one
Okay.
of the three criteria: skilled, scarce, and settled. I think is other names of the one of the three criteria, and you just have to meet one of those three. So वो December phase हो या March phase हो, I don't think the rigorousness or the veracity with which immigration processes the application will change. That is going to be quite the same. regardless वो आपने phase 1 में launch करी application या phase 2 में launch करी application. It eventually boils down to case by case basis. Like for an example, if someone has character issues, उनके application को will take a little longer, and the immigration will probably do a lot of verification and an assessment on that application as compared to someone who doesn't have any character issues or health issues for that matter. तो वो केस टू केस डिपेंडेंट होता है, बट यस, इफ एनीवन इज थिंकिंग कि दिसंबर में रिग्रेस ज़्यादा थे, मार्च में रिग्रेस कम होंगे, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. It is the process and the way an immigration officer processes the application is going to be exactly the same regardless if it's phase 1 or phase 2.
Right. Okay. Now, if I have to request you to quickly, अगर मैं आपसे पूछूं, क्योंकि this is the line of inquiry that we have been facing a lot, even during the holidays, that those
Mhm.
anxious clients, they are just asking for kind of documentation that will be required, जैसे कि birth certificate या police clearance certificate, PCC. So अगर मैं आपके top of head से आप मुझे बता पाएंगे कुछ important documents जो हमारे
Sure.
candidates को अभी से arrange करना शुरू कर देना चाहिए?
देखिए, मेनली तो फॉर एप्लीकेंट्स जो ऑन शोर हैं, सो द प्रिंसिपल एप्लीकेंट हुज ऑन शोर, उनकी पुलिस सर्टिफिकेट की रिक्वायरमेंट तो इमिग्रेशन न्यूजीलैंड ने पहले ही बोल दिया है कि फ्रॉम योर होम कंट्री पुलिस सर्टिफिकेट विल नॉट बी रिक्वायर्ड इफ यू प्रोवाइडेड वन ऑलरेडी. हाँ, अगर ऐसे कहीं लोग हैं हु हैव स्पेंट, लेट्स से इंडियन सिटीजन हु हैव स्पेंट लेट्स से कपल ऑफ इयर्स इन सिंगापुर, उनको सिंगापुर पुलिस सर्टिफिकेट अब तक प्रोवाइड नहीं करना पड़ा होगा, बट व्हेन दे अप्लाई फॉर रेजिडेंस दे विल बी रिक्वायर्ड टू प्रोवाइड वन. So they should get that sort of documents arranged. Birth certificate would probably be the other document, जिसमें कई बारी time लग सकता है. Indian records, if I'm not mistaken, from 19 prior, all the record of birth prior to 1984 is inconsistent. So a lot of anyone born prior to 1984 may or may not be always be able to get a birth certificate. तो उसकी बजाय you have to get a birth record destroyed, or birth certificate is an obtainable document from the municipality office. So those are the main documents that I'm telling my clients to make sure they are getting right now. Apart from that, employment related documents, I don't think there's a lot of preparation that's needed. For skilled or scarce criteria will be, or usual employment agreements, pay slips, etc., would be the documents that will be needed, or job description, etc. And again,
We're
there's
talking
not a lot
about
of
this
groundwork.
payslip and the job description. Like, one of our readers has sent us a query that saying that he has been working full time for probably in a 40-hour role for last, I would say, last 2 years, out of the 3 years. For the 2 years,
Mhm.
he was in a 40-hour role. But in the last 1 year, he has actually changed his role and moved from 40-hour to a 30-hour role. And he has picked up an additional 10-hour role with a different employer. So, do you think there would be any adverse impact on applications like them?
No. So from an immigration standpoint, full-time ki definition is anything over 30 hours a week. So as long as they have one full-time employment going on, which is more than 30 hours a week, they can still qualify for residence as long as they meet the criteria for skilled or scarce. I'm presuming वो settled criteria शायद नहीं meet करे होंगे. That's hence the question. But yeah,
Yes.
anything over 30 hours is considered as full-time from an immigration standpoint.
All right, okay, no, that's a great question. I'm still waiting for other questions to come in. And meanwhile, coming back to this, आपने जैसा you have already thrown a very good light on what those prospective applicants they can expect. Uh, but again, आपके experience में, do you think there is a general line of advice that you would like to give to all those prospective applicants?
I think the main thing would be कि आप documents अपने prepare करके रखें already if you're doing the applications yourself, or just make sure that if you want to use an advisor, that you're speaking to them now. And then after that, I think if I'm being realistic, 1st of March, I'm almost 99% certain there will be technical issues. इतनी वॉल्यूम में, जिस वॉल्यूम में वन ऑफ रेजिडेंट वीजा 1st of March में एप्लीकेशंस लॉन्च होगी, आई कांट रिमेंबर फॉर द लास्ट 8 odd years that I worked with immigration कि ऐसा कभी ऐसा कोई सिस्टम के ऊपर लोड इतना आया हो. And the online system only came into existence in 2015 anyway, so I guess you can say कि I've known it ever since it's come out. So
True, true.
I am almost certain कि technical issues आएंगे. um, you know um, don't rush to be that first person. I want to be the first one to launch the application. Make sure you're doing the application correctly rather than doing it quickly, I think is the main advice. Secondly, only trust advice from official sources. I mean, if I'm being honest, half of my days usually goes through busting rumors about immigration. कि अरे नहीं ऐसा नहीं ऐसा
Correct.
होगा ऐसा नहीं ऐसा होगा इन सारा
Correct.
कुछ. So just make sure कि whatever advice you do follow, या तो आप immigration न्यूजीलैंड से directly बात करें, and अगर आप उनसे बात करें तो make sure you ask them for the resource that they're quoting you and they're giving you the advice from, because a lot of my ex-colleagues can sometimes use their head knowledge, which is not always good. um,
Well, I will stop you there. Well, yeah, at one end you are really giving us good reassurances, and at other end you are scaring our people as well with your expert inside knowledge. That जब लोगों को ये मालूम चलेगा कि जो एडवाइस आ रही है हो सकता है वो डाउटफुल हो. So probably that gives another reason to them to maybe come back and check with immigration advisors like you to see if you they have got the right advice, isn't it?
Yeah, sure. I think, if it's eventually, sir, I think it comes down to each person. If some people want to do the applications themselves, so they'll do it themselves. And if someone wants to use an advisor, they can, always get in touch with me or any other competent advisor and get their application sorted from them. Yeah, I think that's kind of the main thing. Ki don't
Sure.
rush, be patient, and then expect technical difficulties and delays. In December phase, I think if I'm not mistaken, just going it from the top of my head, I think that around 11 or 12,000 applications that were submitted out of the 110,000 applications. So around 90,000 applicants. I'm not saying कि सारे ही 1st of March को शायद जाएंगे, but a big chunk of them will be trying to launch those applications on 1st of March. So as you
Sure.
can imagine, I think it's inevitable कि immigration website will crash. I won't be surprised if that crash continues for the, let's say, the first 2 or 3 days. Like the last time around as well, on 1st of December, the website was not up and running for a lot of people for at least the first 3 days. So that creates, a bit of an issue.
Sure,
Um,
sure. No, thank you very much. Thank you very much, man. Really appreciate you have given such a clear insight. One another question we have received from another of our viewer, saying that what he's saying is that his family is back in India and they have never been in New Zealand. This gentleman, he qualifies for this one-off residency visa. So in scenarios like them, like are they allowed to file application for their children and family who are living overseas as well?
Yes. Yes. So I have a lot of clients जिनके की principal applicant, let's say, wife who's here and husband and kids are stuck overseas or vice versa. तो उस case में my recommendation is usually कि आप चारों applicate अपनी family को, kids and partner if they've got one, to include them all in one application and then submit it. As long as आपका relationship minimum meets the requirement of the minimum requirements to be recognized as a relationship, which from an Indian community standpoint, as long as आप married हैं तो आप उनको इंक्लूड कर सकते हैं एप्लीकेशन के अंदर. येस, पार्टनर की एप्लीकेशन स्ट्रेट अवे अप्रूव नहीं होगी, बिकॉज फॉर पार्टनर्स रेजिडेंट वीजा टू बी अप्रूव्ड व्हेन दे आर इंक्लूडेड इन एन एप्लीकेशन, दे मस्ट हैव लिव्ड टुगेदर फॉर 12 मंथ्स. उस केस में वो मेन एप्लीकेंट की इमिग्रेशन रेजिडेंट वीजा अप्रूव कर देंगे, एंड देन दी सेकेंडरी एप्लीकेंट्स application will be deferred, and then once they've lived together for 12 months, they'll pick up the same application and then approve that visa.
Or maybe if they can provide evidence of having lived together 12 months prior to coming to New Zealand, that might be considered legitimate.
So again, that's quite that's where the waters get a little muddy, because
Sure,
Indian,
sure.
from realistically speaking, देखिए इंडिया में जब शादी होती है यूजुअली, स्पेशली अगर कोई बाहर से आके शादी करता है, तो 1 या 2 महीने से ज्यादा लोग साथ में नहीं रहे होते, एंड दे
Mm.
यूजुअली स्टे एट देयर पेरेंट्स हाउस. तो उस केस में पार्टनरशिप एविडेंस प्रोवाइड करने इंडिया से becomes quite challenging.
Right.
Um, to meet the requirement of immigration New Zealand. So it's it varies, I guess. And it boils down to each person's case. तो I think उनको ये चेक करना पड़ेगा कि उनका पार्टनरशिप एविडेंस कितना स्ट्रांग है. हाँ, अगर देखिए 2 बच्चे हैं और let's say 5-10 साल से if they've been together, then hopefully they should have enough evidence to show कि they are living together in a genuine stable relationship. So that
No, that's
it's a
really
little bit
great.
different.
Thank you very much, Mang. Now, another question has come in where one of our readers, they're asking that can we travel overseas after filing this one-off residence visas?
Uh, right. See, the technical answer to that question is yes. So Immigration New Zealand did clarify. I believe in November or early December, there was a high court ruling around the resident visa holders who were outside New Zealand who had never activated their resident visa. So basically, someone who applied for residence got approved and they were still overseas. Those people were not allowed to enter New Zealand, and during the COVID restrictions. And that high court ruling has clarified that they should have been allowed, and that's why that kind of caused a ripple effect onto this one-off resident visa processing key. How can you actually stop the processing of a one-off application if someone goes overseas and their ability to come back? It's just, excuse me, a few factors that impacted are like the MIQ side of things. So apparently MIQ uses this system called MIAS, which is the managed isolation allocation system, and apparently the one-off resident visa is currently not being recognized in that system.
Yes.
um,
So basically, I would just, I know probably you've already answered that, but the thing is, like somebody who has applied for one off residence visa, so by all practical means, he's still a temporary migrant over here.
yes.
And then if temporary migrant is traveling overseas under current scenario of closed New Zealand borders, probably he won't have the eligibility to be allowed back, or
See,
he won't have the medical purpose.
I clarified that with immigration last month, because there was an immigration amendment circular that came out that shed some light on this. So their response was yes, they can travel. However, right now, I would personally tell people not to travel unless they've got
Not to do that.
absolutely urgent reasons to do it. And if they are going to travel, just make sure they've done their homework and they know the risks that are associated with it.
Fair enough.
Um,
Well, another viewer, Kashish Priya, she's asked the question that once we will get the resident visa 2021, will we be allowed to go to India? Well, I'm
yes.
assuming that yes, that
Yeah.
should be the it should not be a problem as long as other situation like from immigration perspective there should not be a problem, isn't it?
No, no.
Unless
So if
there
you're
is
a
any
resident,
travel
then you can come
restriction
back.
because of
Yes. जैसे last
right.
time हुआ था जब when India was added to the list of very high risk countries, so even resident
Yes,
visa holders India straight away travel नहीं कर पा रहे थे, so they had to go to a green zone country, spend 2 weeks there, and then travel to New Zealand.
sure.
So worst case scenario में Kashish, that's what you will have to do. But yes, as such, from an immigration standpoint, there is nothing stopping you once you become a resident to go to India. वो तो I think कि जितने लोग one of resident visa apply कर रहे हैं, a big chunk of them have not seen their family for so long. So I would
Wow.
say कि न्यूजीलैंड तो थोड़ा खाली हो जाएगा as soon as the resident visas start coming through, because a lot of people will be wanting to travel back to India.
Definitely, I completely understand. Well, that is, well, I don't know, like, we have been talking to a lot of employers association who are already,
Worried.
fearing that
Yes.
stage, when there will be a
Yes.
mass exodus of whatever remaining temporary migrants or skilled migrant workers are here. But anyways, that is for another day, another show. But I would say
Sure.
that probably we had a good discussion, Himan. Thank you very much.
No
Before I
worries.
let you go, I just want to ask one final question. Like we
Yep.
have spoken a lot about one-off resident visa and people who will be in the queue. Can I just ask you, like, what we can expect for people who have not qualified for this one-off resident visa, and they are still temporary migrants, either on a student visa or on a post-study work visa? From what we are gathering, that they are quite disappointed and frustrated for missing the bus on this time. So, is there a hope for them that they might also get a second chance on normal residence visa in near future?
See, nothing as simple as one-off resident visa, I think, will happen again anytime soon. जितना simplistic criteria one-off resident visa का था, I think ऐसा criteria immigration news की history में मैंने नहीं देखा. The only thing similar happened was 2002, 2003 when they closed off general skills and started skill migrant category. So for them, nothing like one-off key as such to hope ki Labour government, or for that matter any other government in the future, if it changes, will introduce something like this. It's highly unlikely. However, जो normal residence pathways हैं, अब उसमें से residence from work has been closed off. So the only one potential pathway to residence for skilled professionals is going to be skill migrant category, which continues to be closed ever since the lockdown and COVID first hit in March 2020. I'm expecting कि hopefully July तक, when the deadline for one of resident visa is done,
So
by
that
that
is closed for onshore applicants as well, or it is
everybody
closed? Okay.
everybody. So it's a two-step process. So you have to do an expression of interest. It gets selected from the pool, and then you get invited to apply. So Immigration New Zealand has not selected any expression of interest from the pool since March 2020. So when they presume selection, that's when these applicants can then potentially try to get resident visas. Uska bhi criteria when it was closed was sitting at around 160 points and stuff, and I'm expecting a lot of changes in that as well, with the accreditation changes coming through in July this year. and with the new introduction of accredited employer work visa, I think we could see some similar things in the skill migrant category spaces. Where, like for now, as an example, KB outside Auckland, you get 30 points. That could potentially change to outside in regions. So you may not get any points if you are working in Auckland, Christchurch, Hamilton, Dunedin, and Wellington, and things. So those are some of the changes that I did that were in the pipeline before I left immigration in July last year. So what they eventually come back with this year is going to be quite interesting. But yes, I think for anyone who's on a temporary visa in New Zealand right now, they should just continue to focus on upskilling themselves, trying to get a better job and trying to get a better paying job as they go by, because that's very likely going to help them get a better chance to get resident visa down the line under the skill migrant category.
No, that's great. That's, I think, a ray of hope. It's not fully pessimistic points to end, and I think, yeah, you have been quite optimistic that it's not doesn't end, even though the category is closed. But yeah, it will eventually open at some stage. And as long as our temporary migrants, they are working hard and diligently and smartly to upskill themselves, they should probably be fine. But yes, on that note, I think that's a good positive note to end our first discussion in the start of this new year, Himan.
Thank
We
you.
don't want to be overtly pessimistic talking about this sector. We are
Sure.
into summer and good times are there, so
Of
hopefully it will
course.
be good for our immigration sector as well.
Yep. Hopefully.
Great. So thank you very much, Himan. Thanks for joining us. We look
No worries,
forward to
Sandeep.
speak to you again in near future.
Thanks for having me again. Take care. Cheers.
So this is Sandeep, along with our colleagues here at Indian Weekender. Keep watching and like our page to get latest about what's happening in the community. Thank you very much.